Good morning. Wow. You know, CES is a bizarre phenomenon. We can be here as many times as we want, but the faces stay relatively the same. Even the subject matter stay consistent. We're just talking about them in context of a new platform. So I'm going to do a little of that today. The last time I was here was about 5 years ago, and I can assure you it wasn't on a security forum because we still were trying to tell the world that we had to come together around security. And I've been on this mission for 7 years, working with governments and through talks and hopefully trying to get published in different areas to try to evangelize why security is important, what it means, and what our parts are. Today I'm going to do just that, but apply to the next big wave, which is the Internet of Things, whatever that means, and we'll talk more about that. And what's amazing is 5 years ago I was standing on a different stage, not too far from here, talking about the next biggest wave of smartphones. And it's interesting, when I look back 5 years in 2011, so I'm being generous because it could be 2010, 35% of American adults had a smartphone. 37% of Europeans had a smartphone. 83% had a mobile telephone. So it's not that long ago. It's all new, and we're already on to another platform. But what's important is to understand what our roles are so that this next wave, which is going to fundamentally change the world again, becomes our biggest opportunity instead of the Internet of Things being the biggest security threat to everything. So I've been around 25 years, and in that 25 years in technology, I have seen now the sixth fundamental platform shift. And although we call it a shift, it's much more of an evolution because there's two interesting things to point out here. Number one is each time we evolve the platform, we don't actually get rid of any other platforms. Everything you see up here is still around. And the one on the right, you're right, I've just put the term cloud. It really can be Internet of Things, but we're going to define that together over the next couple of years. So leave it with cloud. I argue, which isn't the point of the slide, that cloud isn't going to be a platform shift. It's just going to be the common denominator that everything, all platforms are tied together. But that's a little bit of a different story, and we'll get into it. So the first point of this is we haven't left any of the other platforms behind. The names have changed slightly. We call them enterprise servers instead of mainframes. In the 1990s, I was with IBM. I changed tapes on some of these things in the coldest parts of the world. It was brutal. But they're still around. They just store data rather than drive all the processing. And we carry through now to all the different platforms, which means we as humans are diversifying how we go online and how we process over many different devices. So in essence, our worlds have gotten far more complicated. The second fundamental point of this slide is with each successive platform shift, the technology, the logic, has gotten closer to the user's skin. It is becoming much, much, much more personal. And while I look back at the mainframe and everything was housed in a chilled room with badge access and guns at the door, today we're sharing just as much information, but from thousands, if not millions more devices. It's getting much more personal. The numbers are astounding, and these charts, I see so many of them, they're almost irrelevant, but I'm going to make 2 points on this slide. The first is from 2005 to 2015, which is not the life of the web, it's simply the last 10 years, we have tripled the number of connected devices in our worlds. We can define them. You see them. We've gone from just under 2 to just over 6 billion connected devices. And in that magical 10-year period, we've coined a term that I love today called internet speed. We are moving at internet speed. And internet speed was a great way to describe what was going on, but it became a euphemism for companies, for countries, for individuals who can't keep up. We just left entire industries aside at internet speed. But if you think the last 10 years has been crazy, the next 4 years, starting today, January 2016 to 2020, we are going to triple again the number of connected devices, from 6 to just over 18. The difference is, and this should all cause a great gasp in all of us, is we don't really know what those connected devices are going to look like. Oh, sure, we can define smartwatches and TVs and refrigerators. And we just upgraded our refrigerator, by the way, because the third time the repairman came out with a $1,500 recharge of the Freon. He said, Freon's leaking in your house. I'm like, is that good? Like, is that a good thing? And he goes, well, the sensors should have picked it up, but it didn't. I'm like, okay. So now we're into this thing for nearly $5 grand. I'm like, time for a new fridge, which was less than that. And it's connected to the internet. It sends diagnostics. So I asked the guy, I said, let me see it. And he showed me this page. And then I asked him, what happens with my data? And we'll get into that. But we're going to triple the number. And we don't know what those devices are going to be, because what we already know today isn't the sum total of what's going to be connected 4 years from now. And it is this unknown that is going to define what happens to us as users, as consumers. And today, we are evolving as an ecosystem where users, where human beings, you and I, not employees, not government officials, but you and I as human beings are at the center of everything that is going on. It is the biggest wave. It will change humanity. When we talk about the mobile revolution 5 years ago, we went and did a on-the-ground assessment in various parts of the world, and we saw how that mobile technology, connectedness is changing the world. Everything from access to medicine, to access to education, to being able to predict crop growing patterns and disease patterns and insect patterns, and the changes to the yield and changes to the humanity that happened as a result of it. Take all of that and multiply it by several orders of magnitude when everything can be connected. And it's an unbelievable thing. We have 6 platform shifts, and yet we're still standing right on the edge of something that is going to change humanity more fundamentally than anybody in this room can possibly conceive. And it is right here. But we are but a small little part in this. And it is us that are sharing and connecting. And what does that mean? The inherent conflict that we are standing in the middle of right now. By the way, I know when I do this, I drive the camera people crazy. And there's 3 different sets of cameras, so I can't moonwalk, but it was a good effort. We have an inherent conflict that we are right in the middle of. And that conflict is us, and many of us are delivering products, and we want to get those products to market quickly. And we want to be the first mover advantage. And so we're driven. Our own ecosystems, our own policies, if we have policies at all, get it. And trust. Trust means taking a step back. Trust means understanding who you're impacting with what you're delivering. Trust means building the policies in the ecosystem to actually put the user in control of what they're sharing and how they're sharing and what they want to share. And those are in massive conflict today. And we've got to rectify those. And I think this is something that we can learn from the web. But the reason we should all care is trust is the new currency. Trust will define companies that win and companies that lose. I don't even need to tell you that. You can look already without this explosion of connected devices, and you can see companies that have been fundamentally breached and have been found to have not put adequate thought into all of the different elements that go into their security or privacy or identity or user data. Their brand is tarnished for a very long time, if not fatally. Companies will win or lose and be standing 4 years from now, based on the trust equation that they can create with the users that they serve. You don't need to take my word for it. Today we released, a study. It's on our website. It was done with the Mobile Economic Forum through 6 continents, lots and lots and lots of people. I always get the number wrong, but it's like 15,000 something or other, and everybody always corrects it. Somewhere in the neighborhood. And here's what they said. 36% of everybody surveyed, 6 continents, this isn't a US or a European-based study, have serious privacy and security concerns about all the platforms that touch the web. Now, I've heard this. People say, well, 64% don't seem to give a poop. Like, what's the big deal? Well, no, that's not the interpretation. As you'll read from the study, 64% are unaware. 36% is only relevant compared to where it was 2 years ago, and it was low single digits. The anxiety index among all of us at how we're connecting and what that means is rising very rapidly. Of everyone surveyed, 27% have privacy and security concerns that have prevented them from downloading, using, or continuing to use an app or a service, up from nearly 0 2 years ago. And nearly half of us said we would pay extra for a privacy-friendly app. And what that means, some app that puts them in control. Meaning, I don't have to accept every agreement to get the app. I can actually segment out some of the things that I want to share and not share. Monumental change. But today, we're not there. We're like the Wild West, and I love the Wild West. Who here was alive at the Wild West? I was not. So granted, my best case recollection of the Wild West is what I've seen portrayed in Hollywood, which is very accurate, I am certain. But it seemed to me that the world revolved around, I walk into a bar, and if I suspected you, yes you, of stealing one of my donkeys, I'd take a shot of whiskey, throw down a gold nugget of some substantial size, and you and I would go out and fight it out. Not exactly the best trust environment to build a society around. I don't even have to prove whether you were right or wrong. I just would shoot you, and then the sheriff would sort it out. And the entire environment was based on the whims of that local sheriff. And that's kind of how the Internet of Things is rolling out right now. Every company is defining what they feel is appropriate and not appropriate, and what they should connect to, and where they play and where they don't play. Along the way of evolution, thank goodness, we came into structures and mores and values and ways that we will operate in a decent society, and when we merge and when we don't merge. And believe me, I know there are many exceptions. I drive Highway 101 in California every day, and there's not a lot of politeness most of the time, but there's an alarmingly few accidents. It's because we've established a way that we're going to work together. It hasn't come from just policies. It hasn't come from just government. It's come from us. And that's exactly the way we have to evolve Internet of Things. Let me talk about that. It can be founded similar to the way the principles of the web were founded. The web was a fascinating thing when it was first launched, probably some 25 years ago. And it was founded, the whole thing rested on roughly 5 fundamental principles. And those principles varied from universality. It had to be available everywhere. Interoperability. Can it all work together? Can all the nodes act independently? Meaning, can it be distributed? Will one node be able to take down the next node? And if one fails, will the whole thing fail? And the answer, of course, is no. So we had to engineer resilience. And then, of course, something that's still being debated today, a founding principle, is content neutrality. I wasn't going to let any one company dictate what I can and can't put on the web, because it has to be a web of the people, the way we live our lives. That's what we learned from the web. But nowhere in there did we talk about user rights or trust or privacy or identity or security, because there weren't those threats. We didn't know. And we've been playing catch up for the last 20 years. That's what I've been spending a bulk of the last 7 years outside of my day job doing, with the EU privacy policies, with the right to be forgotten, with the Obama Privacy Directive, with evangelizing what those should be to create a framework for cyber resilience that we can all live, but that's not going to be massively punitive. Those are the principles of the web. What we need to take forward to the principles of the Internet of Things is those same 5 principles added to it, the rights of the citizen. Because you are sharing so much and you don't know it, and you're not in control. And the reason why it matters more now than ever, because it's not, I'm worried about somebody taking over my PC with a malware. It's very, very personal. And I love to have this discussion because people say, Gary, it's a smartwatch. What's the big deal? It says your heart rate when you're out for a run. Now, I don't run. I'm not a runner. I suck. The USGA Geiger counter shakes if I actually hop. But for me, heart rate and sweat when I'm working out or riding a bike or skiing or doing anything else, no. But I argue back, well, that's not what most smartwatches do today. Most smartwatches know where you are. They know what apps you've downloaded. It knows when you're on those apps and when you're not on those apps. It knows your sleep patterns. It knows your REM sleep count, your non-REM sleep count, what time you go to bed, what time you wake up, where you are in the world, how fast you drive your car. They're all GPS located. I could go on and on and on. I've listed more than 10 things here, and I've only begun. All of that is data you may or may not know you're sharing. It's going off to some cloud somewhere. And let me ask you, in this room here, anybody that has a smartwatch or smart TV or most apps on your smartphone, how many of you have really studied the privacy policies of the companies behind those? Exactly. Here is the point. So that may in and of itself not be that alarming, but what if all of that was being sold to companies that were remarketing and now, based on sleep patterns, offering me a new bed? Looks like you're pretty restless this last 3 months. You seem still married, but you're restless. Like, should we offer you a new bed? That's the same to me as a car salesperson coming into my living room while my family's talking about a new minivan and saying, hey, have you looked at the Caravan from Chrysler? I know what I would do if that person was in my living room, and it wouldn't be very friendly. That's what's happening online. And we can't possibly digest all of these things. It's very, very personal. That story, however, isn't some future state. That's exactly what's happening to that data today. They're not skimming it off your smartwatch. They're getting it from the cloud. And the reason they're getting it is most of those companies are selling it. You're at the center. This is possibly the most alarming example. A major toy company that makes a major child doll, both a male and a female version. The female has blonde hair, although over the years it's diversified and gentrified quite a bit. And the male looks roughly the same. I never had that look. And I come in a few flavors, but that's about it. And they added one amazing feature last year. And that feature was you could talk to it and it would talk back to you. It took the child's voice, sent it up to the cloud, processed it, and came back with intelligent answers. Conversation, sort of like Siri or Cortana, or who am I not offending? I haven't done the Google one. But any of those services for kids. Great, great feature. Except what happened last December was it was exposed that hackers hacked into the stream and exposed it on a website. And those child conversations, those family conversations when that doll was in the room are now exposed to the web. You can only imagine the impact. We all talk about Ashley Madison. This one is a far bigger impact because this is our children. That company is now going through almost unreparable brand damage and several class action lawsuits to be determined how they emerge. They were not a malintended company, I guarantee you. They were an unaware company. But the thing we love to talk about, the unaware is the most significant. But criminals and criminal networks are alive and well. And people ask me, well, how serious is this? The criminal networks in the last 2 years have grown over 1 order of magnitude in complexity, size, and number over the last 2 years. What you see here is an actual view of our threat center in Europe. And you can see the hot spots and the size of the circles and where those different threats are tracking. And we see everything. And the biggest areas now that are being threatened, medical equipment. We see malware that isn't just going after PCs anymore. It's going after stuff that you and I don't even know it's going after. And again, this is one of these unbelievable areas that people say to me, yeah, but my smartphone hasn't been hacked. And I actually haven't seen any threat come into my PC or Mac. And for me, the Mac is a sacred heaven. Don't mess with my Mac. And it's, well, the data tells us something different. This is from ours and the industry's threat intelligence. This top statistic blows me away. There have been more malware threats in the last year than in the previous 7 years combined. That translates to about 130,000 new, not deviants, but new malware threats released into the wild every single day. Back to the criminal network. 6 times more Mac malware in 2015 than the previous 5 years combined. No. So, you know, this is the only time I'm going to put a shameless plug. With all these threats, people still, the penetration of smartphone internet security and threat security, of which we have by far the leading product, is still low. we're just barely into the double digits. And the part of this that I can't possibly understand is it's free. No cost whatsoever. We have 100 million endpoints sending us telemetry every single day. That's how we are able to paint this picture. Over the last 2 years, as a result of this, we've been able to take the average time to eradicate a threat from 45 minutes to less than 45 seconds. It's done in the cloud. That's the power of the distributed network. It's free on the desktop, it's free on the mobile device, and people still don't believe it. So if you take one point down, download, hopefully ours, but somebody's. Exactly. But here we are. No matter how secure our particular endpoint is, we're only as great as the weakest link. And the minute we connect to something, we've connected to the weakest link. And the final example before I turn into what we're going to do about it is webcam. This happens mostly today because we're connecting old things to new services. And we are not connecting them when we are thinking about end-to-end security. This company, a baby cam monitoring service around the world, sold lots of these things. And what it was found and reported by CNN in 2014, at the time, it's now, the number's grown much greater, is thousands of those entire streams were hacked and posted out in the open on websites. Again, the companies behind that are nearly out of business today. They didn't think they were doing anything, they just didn't think. So, what are we going to do about it? Well, policy and regulation will almost certainly play a very important role. We see some really interesting advancements, the right to be forgotten in Europe, and there's a healthy tension between a lot of these, what we should do and what we actually can do as technologists. It's hard. But we're working with the governments, they're going to come along. Sometimes, though, it's a post facto versus a predictive set of policies and regulations, so we can't rely on them. But we have a part. So I'm going to leave you with 3 things. And these are important. The first, whether you think you are or whether you think you are not, every one of us in this room who works for a company is in the data business. Anytime you connect any product to anything other than its standalone self, you are in the data business. And I've done a lot of work this year with boards and other things in helping to build this framework, and I marvel at how unsophisticated we are in understanding this concept. What I mean by that specifically is it is inconceivable for me to believe that anybody at this show is going to produce a product that either isn't already connected to a service or in the next 3 years is going to be connected to a service. Standalone products are losers. Machinery, tractors, cars, everything. It's all connected. We are in the data business. So the keys that we have to assume and accept for our own companies, what are our privacy policies? Do we really put forward a privacy policy that truly reflects what we want that user experience to do? Or are we kidding ourselves? Do we have somebody that's a data architect? Where do we store our data? What are the policies around that data? When we pass data to a partner because we plug into one of their systems, do we hold them accountable to our standards? Do we accept their standards? Is there a common framework for exchanging this data? Do the headers get stripped out? Is there somebody in our companies, big or small? Sure, you can have chief data architects, but most of us are in really small companies that just don't have that. But you need to be thinking about this. And end user license agreements. Have they evolved? When was the last time you updated your end user license? You are in the data business. But the other side of this is also true, which is it's an incredible opportunity. We can use this data to change our product on an ongoing basis to make that user journey with us more amazing than it ever has been. Are we thinking about that? Do we have product people that are thinking the whole end-to-end evolution of the customer journey? You are in the data business. Second, if you are in the data business and you're delivering products that are connected, you are in the ecosystem. Just as you sitting in this room are part of a community, and where you live, you're part of a community, and each one of us are part of the world. We have a responsibility to participate in that ecosystem, to understand that ecosystem. Is it okay if I shoot somebody because I think you stole my cattle? Today, well, I don't know, this whole, I won't go there, but What are the norms? What are the ways that we live in this ecosystem? Do we have people in our company that truly understand those? So that if I'm building this product and stuck in this conflict between speed and trust, I'm actually building it in the right way. Because unless I'm going to own the whole thing, and to the best of my knowledge, I can only list a few companies that actually think they are, then we're all participating in an ecosystem. So we have a responsibility. And the third, if we're in the data business and if we're building products that connect, we are implored to be a part of the solution. What does that mean? There are standards. There are connection standards. There are security standards. There are working groups. There are white papers. If it works for you, contribute what you learn. If it doesn't work for you, challenge. There are almost too many ways to do that I can even list. It is our responsibility living in this world to participate in this world. It is our responsibility living in this ecosystem to be part of the solution. We are doing our part. It's a tiny little bit. We need everybody to do our part. And if we do our part, we will turn the Internet of Things not into the biggest threat to everything, but into the biggest opportunity, not only for the world, but for each of our companies. Trust is the currency. If you fail and don't do these three things, or don't acknowledge these three things and take action, you will be one of the ones that will lose because you'll get breached. And it might be a crime of unknowing, but that's not an acceptable framework. And it won't be an acceptable framework going forward. So with that, I thank you for your time, and I hope I can count on everybody in this room to work with us to build this amazing opportunity. Thank you.